Hello and welcome to Backstage. This is the Bookosmia room. I welcome you all. Choices, they're not always easy, are they? Should you watch another episode or should you do your work? Should you take that extra piece of sweet or should you get out of bed at all? It's not easy. But hey, I'm not just speaking about human beings. We all know that there are animals and birds and organisms no less important on this beautiful earth who make choices every day too. So, what are these choices and what really happens deep in the jungles of India? We're here to discuss a book that's about India's incredible wildlife diversity. But then again, is it a book about animals at all? Is there a deeper meaning to this riveting tale? About making different choices, about the true meaning of justice. That's what we will be speaking today with the amazing book that's called The Tiger, the Bear, and the Battle for Mahovann, which is written by Akshay Manwani and published by Westland Red Panda. Illustrations by Devashri Damodari. Welcome, all of you. This is Bookosmia Young Readers Podcast, the only live podcast in India where we bring the author and their young readers together to discuss books, to exchange notes on the wonderful process of not just reading a book, but writing it and experiencing it. So, why are we doing this? Why is Bookosmia organizing this Young Readers podcast? I'm going to go over to the CEO of Bookosmia. She is also the founder, Nidhi Mishra, who has pivoted from her life in a corporate sector to start this wonderful platform for kids. Over to you, Nidhi, and welcome.
Thanks, Ashna. Hi, everybody. Very happy to be here with all of you. I know there are some regular listeners here. So, most of you know what is so special about this podcast. I love it because, one, our young readers get to express what they think about books. I remember growing up when I would read a book, it would be written by some adult and it would be reviewed by some adult. And I always wondered why no one is asking me if the book was actually written for a child like me. So it's amazing that these young people are coming forward and sharing their views. And I also like it because there's a lot more meaningful conversation for the author to have because everyone here has read the book. It's no longer a pitch about go buy the book, this is what it's about, but everyone has a good understanding of what the story is, who are the characters, and I think it makes for a more meaningful conversation. So very excited to have this lot here. Welcome, Akshay. I totally enjoyed the book while reading it with my daughter. As classic as the theme is good versus evil, but it was very unputdownable for me. It's a fantastic job.
Thank you so much, Nidhi, and it's a real joy to join you
Yes,
on
absolutely.
Bookosmia with all the other children.
Well, thank you, Akshay. Thank you, Nidhi, for that wonderful introduction on what makes Bookosmia special. And as we go along, you're going to see today youngsters under the age of 11 who have gone ahead and chosen this book to read this month. And this discussion is going to be a direct line to the author and telling the author what they feel about the book. But before that, I would thank you. I can see all of you joining in. That's really nice to see. Akshay, who is Akshay Manwani? I think you must know this, a fascinating bio. Akshay is an NBA commentator, a freelance writer, and a published author. His work reflects his two passions for basketball and Indian cinema. He also undertakes research assignments for film, TV, and other content driven platforms. He won the Red Ink Award for Best Lifestyle and Entertainment Story from the Press Club of Mumbai. And if writing brilliant books on Sahil Ludhianvi and Nasir Hussain wasn't enough, he's also an amateur wildlife photographer. But I'm going to hold off on saying amateur because from what I could see from the book, this is a person who understands animals, who sees them, and who sees them as much more than just beings that roam out in the jungle. So with that, welcome Akshay, welcome to this podcast.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to join y'all, and I'm looking forward to having a great interactive session.
Thank you, Akshay. One question: are you nervous?
No, not at all. Actually, I've been interacting a lot with kids over the last few months. Uh, So my nervousness and anxiety has come down. I do agree that it is the toughest demographic to cater to and respond to, because they ask very exciting, intelligent questions, and you really can never expect what a young mind is going to shoot your way. But I've got a little used to my jitters and my nervousness, so I'm a little more relaxed.
It's okay to be Akshay, even if you're. I think all of us, when we speak out, we always talk about this. It's about just coming in out and speaking. And I'm so glad that you've joined us today, Akshay. This brilliant book that you have written, and of course, we're going to speak more about it. And to start off proceedings, we have Sanvi Agarwal, who's 11, and she's from Kolkata. Before I introduce Sanvi, I just want to welcome you all to Backstage. And I want to tell you that this is the Bookosmia room. And on your phone, you will see options called Request to Speak, currently disabled. But if you'd like to say something, the chat button is right there. So please do write in your comments, your questions. We will be taking some questions at the end, provided we have time. All right. So thank you so much for joining in. And all of you young speakers, best of luck. We look forward to your thoughts. So Sanvi Agarwal, we start with. She is 11. And she goes to La Matinee for Girls, Kolkata. She loves doodling and writing poems. She's into K-pop these days and recently wrote a wonderful poem about BTS. So welcome, Sanvi.
Hello.
Hi, San.
Sanvi, before you ask the question, I have something to know from you. So according to you, what was your favorite moment in the book? And tell us the general thoughts that you have about the book.
The book, The Tiger and the Bear, The Battle of Mahovann, from the very beginning, gives a very beautiful insight to the incredible wildlife of India. The setup of the story with the fascinating jungle, free animals, trees, birds and rivers takes the readers like me to the imagination land full of mesmerizing landscapes. Akshay sir has delivered an action-packed drama story that with diversity of emotions like love, friendship, loyalty, anger, betrayal, determination, justice, all in one book. The names used in the story like Veera, Taranath, Sultan, Dak Hai Ishaf makes the book even more relatable and engrossing. Veera, the old tiger, is a justice-loving king who in the dilemma about punishing his friends and commander Bhairav the bear but chooses justice above all. Akshay sir has taken tremendous effort in developing the characters, hence the readers can totally relate to the incidents of the book. The most interesting character according to me is Sultana. I am in awe of her courage and determination to save her husband from imprisonment. She's a true hero of the story. Nothing can stop a woman who has determined to rise. The way she protected her cubs from the enemies for Taranath is tremendous. No wonder she deserves to be the ruler of Mahovann. I love the fact how effortlessly Akshay sir has highlighted women empowerment. This book is immensely interesting from the beginning and keeps the reader on the edge as the story unfolds. I would recommend it to all of my friends. Thank you, Akshay sir, for this delightful story.
Thank you. That was such a lovely, holistic review of my book, and I'm glad you liked it, Sanvi. And I'm here to answer all your questions. But before I answer any of your questions, I also want to tell you that my daughter is a very big BTS fan, and she'd be delighted that you've written a poem on her favorite K-pop group. It's actually her favorite group.
Thank you, sir.
So go ahead and you can ask me your question.
So my question to Akshay sir is, sir, you are a very big sports enthusiastic, but what inspired you to write a book on animal politics?
Well, see, actually, some years ago, this was in 2018 November, the week of Diwali, we actually spent in Kaziranga National Park, which is not very far from where you live. You live in Kolkata, correct?
Yes.
So we were in Assam, And my wife, me, and my daughter, we were. It was our first visit to Kaziranga National Park, and we were on a safari drive, and we were waiting for a rhino to come out of the the clearing from the forest bushes. And while we were waiting for the rhino, my daughter suddenly looked at me and she told me that, you've authored these two film books previously. And she said that, Dad, they're quite boring. I don't enjoy your film books. I can't understand them, right? So why don't you write something fun and interesting for me? So that was actually, it was like motivation for me that maybe I should write something which is of interest for her. And because I had just maybe around to mid 2017, I had started doing wildlife photography. So I said, why not combine my passion for writing and the fact that I'm also very passionate about the wild? Why not merge those two interests and put a book together? Because I'm not the very best photographer, and neither am I someone who could just tell a story for the sake of telling a story. I wanted to use the book as you would have seen. Sadly, that the book is not just a story. I mean, like you said, it has all these emotions, and there are characters, and there are good characters and not so good characters. But the idea is also to educate children on those wild species, right? So now, hopefully, when you look at the glossary at the end of the book, right, which is illustrated, the glossary also gives you a few lines of general information about those animals who are playing various characters in the story, right? So the idea was to enhance the learning experience, not just the engagement by virtue of telling a story, but also to enhance the learning of children, because even I, for myself, did not know about India's incredible wildlife before I started doing this, the kind of wildlife photography I've been doing over the last 4.5 odd years or 5 years now. There were species I didn't even know that we find in our country, So it's important that we realize the biodiversity of our nation, and also that it is incredibly unique. It is incredibly diverse. What we see in Kaziranga National Park and some of the other forests in the northeast is very different from what you will see in the Desert National Park, which is next to Jaisalmer in Rajasthan, or what we see in the Little Rann of Kutch in Gujarat, or the fact that the ape species in the northern part of India are not found in the southern part of India, and vice versa. So the idea was to, the objective was twofold. One, tell an engaging story. Hopefully children will like it, and not just children, adults also. But equally, tell a story at the end of which children will be, their curiosity will awaken. And they will be more, hopefully ask more questions, and maybe force their parents to take them to various national parks so that they can see these animals for themselves. So that was the idea behind the book.
Okay, sir.
That was wonderful. Thank you, Akshay, for that lovely answer. I think a lot of us had that question. Nidhi on the chat has actually given you a question. So she says, curious to know the reasoning behind naming the characters. Bhairav is such a grave, heavy name, and his brother's name is Tabahi, has such a different feel. So I think, Akshay, so how do you come up with these names when you write them?
Archana, even yesterday I was asked this question, and I'm actually very happy that people are asking me this question, because it was not something that I just did for the sake of doing. I actually put in a lot of thought that what should be the names of these characters, right? Now, in this very instance, for example, Bhairav, the character that he's playing, he's the commander in chief of Veera's army, right? And when I initially speak about him, I say that he's a very muscular warrior, and he's the commander in chief of the Mahovann forces, and all of that. So I could not have a name like, for example, a light name. It had to convey some kind of intensity. Okay, I mean, when you hear the commander in chief's name, it should strike some amount of respect or awe for this particular person. So therefore his name was Bhairav, right? Some of the other names I can tell you, like, some of the names were completely made up, like, for example, a name like Hamza, or a name like Bitumba, which is one of the elderly lion-tailed macaques in the story. Those were names which I just, concocted. But the only thing that I generally followed, I'm not saying that I did this across, but what I did was I used short names, right? Like Daga, like Hamza, like Bhairav was not a very long name. It's not an easy name for a young child, but Daga and Gati, these are very easy names, roughly 2 syllables. Gati, Daga, um, Maya. So I did it from that point of view. I put some thought into it. Also, I wanted a syllable preferably at the end of the name. So like Hamza, Gati, Arabhi, Ubiki. So just the having a ring at the end of the name somehow, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I felt that it has a certain ring to it, right? So it might stay on in the child's head rather than, if I were just to go with non-syllable ending names, right? And the third thing that I was aware of while I was doing the naming, I didn't want to put forward names that, in a sense, well, it's not a obvious thing, but hopefully it kind of gave a more cosmopolitan representation of what we are as a nation. We are a secular nation, and therefore I did not want to go with only one kind of names, right? So, for example, a name like Ubiki, while it was purely something that I created from within my mind, I don't think you can say that it belongs to any one kind of culture, or it comes from any one kind of culture of naming, right? Similarly, a name like Veera, right? I mean, not to say that this was a Punjabi name, but in Punjabi they call their elder brother Oi Veere, right? So I mean, I just applied some mind that there should be some logic and thought. Some of the names were literal, like you very correctly pointed out. Tabahi, it means destruction. Now, he's there for a very brief period in the story. So, if you have to remember him, his name has to be memorable, right? So, therefore, the name was Tabahi. It could have been a very simple name, like suppose hypothetically his name was Raju. I don't think it would have created the same kind of impact. But Tabahi, just the name, it means something. There were other names like, for example, Rani and Bahadur, the two tiger cubs, or Bijli, again short names, Rani, Bijli. Bahadur, much more common, but I just wanted those ones to be more familiar, because these are, I mean, fairly commonly used names. Rani, Bahadur. Bijli is of course significant for the night that she is named in the story. But yeah, there was thought put into it. The one interesting thing I can tell you is that Daga the fox. This child asked me yesterday that why Daga, and I told her, I said, that there was a movie which I think Miss Nidhi and Archana might be familiar with. There was a movie called Mr. India, which came out in the 1980s, and it was a very big hit of its time, right? And in that movie, there were these two villainous characters called Daga and Teja, right? The main villain was Mogambo, but he had these two sidekicks called Daga and Teja. So Daga was a name which I incorporated from there. So I mean, there were some of them were my own creations, some of them were in common usage. Rani, Bahadur. I cannot claim and say that Sultana is an absolutely unique name. But there was thought put into naming characters. It's not like a character came to my mind and I just put it out there. No, I thought about it. I thought about the phonetics. I thought about the ring. I thought about the cultural system which it may represent or reflect. And In fact, I can also tell you one more story, that at a very late stage in the writing of the book, I even wanted to change Sultana's name. I wanted to name her Anokhi because, one of my friend's daughters, their son is named Ruhan. The younger child is named Ruhan. Ruhan is a character in the book. He's playing it's a peacock. And their daughter, their older child, the girl child, is called Anokhi. And I thought Anokhi was a better name than Sultana. But by then, I said, isko if I change, I don't know if there will be any other repercussions. Another thing I can tell you, I was also conscious of, are there too many names beginning with A? So, for example, Arabhi was already there with A. So, should I switch to Anokhi also, which will again be starting with A and ending with I, right? So, these were thoughts that I had in my mind when I was doing the naming, etc. So, you may find some instances of repetition, like Bitumba and Bahadur both begin with B. Similarly, Bhairav in English begins with B, but in Hindi it's actually Bha, right? So I won't call that similar. But I was cautious of, I didn't want to, because it might become confusing for children when the word, it has to stand out. Sultana, there is no similar sounding character in the book. So I think that was one of the reasons I didn't go ahead and change the name.
That was a brilliant explanation, Akshay. And I don't think we realize this wonderful world that you create, and so much goes into the names of these wonderful characters. All I can say is, "Aapka yeh jawab sunkar Mogambo khush hua." Thank you for reminding us
Correct.
of the old days of Mr. India.
Correct. Now, Archana, if I could just interrupt, now, for example, you said Mogambo. Mogambo
Yeah.
is a name that sticks with you, whether wo khush hua ki na khush hua, it has stayed with us, right? It's such a legendary name. You think of Mowgli, from Jungle Book.
Right.
It's a 2-syllable sounding name. It's a absolutely unique name. Like, I don't think I have ever heard a person name their child, or before that, ever heard anyone name their child Mowgli. So, unique names, short 2-syllable sounding names. And again, would you say that Mowgli represents one kind of culture? Yes, that story was set within the jungles of India. Pench Tiger Reserve is the land of Rudyard Kipling's Jungle Book. But Mowgli is such a brilliant name that you can't say that it belongs to, the southern part of the country or the northern part of the country. It could be from anywhere. So that is what I was hoping to do. I don't know if I have succeeded, but at least there was thought put into names. It wasn't just a random exercise.
That was brilliant, Akshay. Thank you so much for sharing your process with us. All of these youngsters are actually readers and writers, and I want to introduce the next speaker to you today. They're all waiting to speak to you. This is Vachi Agarwal from Delhi. She is 10. She's an English enthusiast. She's a chess player, a YouTuber, an avid reader, and she's a voracious writer as well, and a storyteller with her own YouTube channel called Vachi's Voca Talks, with over 100 videos posted. She has also played chess at the Commonwealth Chess Tournament. Welcome, Vachi.
Wow.
So, Vachi, we just heard all about what Akshay said, his thought process about naming and what he thought. But let's just pretend that we didn't hear all that. And you tell me, Vachi, why do you think the author wrote this book? And of course, you have to share your thoughts as well on the book. Go ahead, Vachi.
Yes. So before I begin, I'd like to extend my utmost gratitude to Bookosmia and Akshay sir, of course, for giving me an opportunity to be a part of this podcast. I'd also like to greet each and everyone here. Needless to say, Akshay sir, the book The Tiger, the Bear and the Battle for Mahovann was indeed a delight to read. The story's idea was as excellent as the story itself. Of all the other characters, the gallant Sultana, the vivacious cubs, and the other characters, my favorite one was definitely the one who was an epitome of intelligence and sensibility, Sultana. Not only was she smart, but also powerful. The part which answered my question of how the tiger family would teach Taranath a lesson included in my favorites of this book. Personally, I don't have much interest in fables, but thanks to Sir, your book, Sir has incorporated a lot of interest into me for this genre.
Great. Thanks so much, Vachi. Is that how we pronounce your name? Did I get it right, Vachi?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So thank you so much. I'm glad you like the book, and if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Yes, so books for me are my all-time go-to, and reading has indeed intrigued me to also write. What do you, as a very successful writer who has written a very successful book also, suggest the first step for writing a book that should be for future young authors?
Bachi, this is actually a very difficult question because many people sometimes see. I will not deny it that there is some kind of I'm not that successful. Also, there are far bigger and better writers, and there are so many writers out there that I respect and I am in awe of. Some kind of fame and acceptance that you get in society when you write a book, and all that is great, but I think the main thing is that you should be compelled by your subject, and by compelled means that you should be there must be something within you which says that I have to do this. It's not like I want to do this, but I have to do this. If I don't do this, then it's going to be, at least for me, I can say it was when I wrote my first book, which was about this Hindi film songwriter. He wrote songs in Hindi films. I was absolutely compelled to write about him because there was no information available about him in the English language. And I thought that there was such a big knowledge gap, such a big information gap on the songwriters, that if I write a book on this one person, that in itself will, create, go a long way in fulfilling such an important vacuum which exists. And the same thing happened with my second book. The second book which I wrote was on the films of this particular filmmaker from the 1970s and 1960s, and I had grown up on that man's films, right? So I was very passionate about those movies that I had seen. Similarly, here in the context of this book, this is a book that came out of my own experiences of traveling around, right? And I wanted to tell a story. I wanted to tell a story which will be informative, like I said, which will be engaging, which will hopefully stimulate the mind, not just from the general awareness, but like Sanvi said, that there is a certain lesson that she was able to take away, and I'm very thankful to Sanvi the way she described what she liked about the story, because that was exactly what I was hoping that the story will do, that it will take you through various kind of emotions, that it is, between the lines, it is about some kind of female empowerment, right? I want to write another children's book, right? I don't know the story, what the story will be, but the main thing which is driving me is that there is a certain knowledge gap about the subject of that book, right? And therefore, to fulfill that knowledge gap, I have to write another book. So there is a compelling desire within me to go and write. I am not seeking. You should not seek. You should not seek fame, or that, if I write a book, I'll be able to post about it on Twitter and Instagram and other kinds of social media, YouTube videos. That all will happen. That all is an offshoot of your hard work. It's like, you plant a seed in the ground, and then you keep watering it, and then you put manure, and then the seed takes root, right? And the plant grows. The plant growing is not what you set out to do. You have done your hard work, right? And you have to keep doing your hard work. If that plant grows, when that plant grows and it gives fruit, that's when you feel fulfilled, right? So just do your work, feel compelled about something that you want to talk about, write about, and only then I would advise that you should go ahead and write a book. Don't write for the sake of writing, or for the sake of all the, the little fame, or the great fame that you will get, but write because you feel that there is something that you want to say, which you need a book length effort, and that's the only viable option for you.
Yes, thank you for answering my question, and I also like to appreciate the explanations you gave for the names, because I never thought in that deep, and it would definitely help me when I write the story myself.
Thank you so much. That's very nice of you.
That was brilliant, Akshay. Thank you. And thank you, Vachi, for that wonderful question. I think just giving us time to think and wonder on all these things we are soaking in, that's a great experience already. And now we go to Adya Mishra Rao. She's all of eight, full of wonder, and has a never ending appetite for books. She's Adya from Bangalore. And hi, Adya, welcome.
Hi, Archana auntie.
Adya, how are you?
I am fine.
So, Adya, tell me, having read this book, are you looking at animals differently?
Actually, I don't look at them so differently because the animals, they are still animals, and I know that the animals won't be able to think about all of this, and it's just like human emotions which Akshay sir has put in animals.
All right. And tell us your thoughts about the book. Go ahead.
My thoughts are that I love the book, and I read it every day because I love reading and I do it a lot. So I usually read it every day because I like it a lot. And I also was first thinking about when I first read the book. I couldn't understand a lot, but now I understand, and I understand what Akshay sir has to say and what all it means.
Great, great, great. So, and do you have any question for me, Adya?
Yes, I have a question that because I understand that Taranath wanted to avenge his father's death and he hated the tiger family, but why did he be so evil against all the other innocent creatures? Why did he Why was he so evil? Is anyone that much evil in the world? Full evil?
Well, actually, that's a very good observation. That is someone so evil, and how can someone suddenly become so evil, right? But I don't have a definitive answer for you, Adya. I cannot say that, definitely if something bad happens to you or to your parent or to your sibling or to your loved one or your friend, that you might also become like Taranath and want to become evil towards everyone around you. But I thought that there, see, whenever you have a character doing a makeover, or his character is changing, you have to give some motivation. So in this case, by motivation I mean is that what leads him to change, right? And therefore I cannot just make a character evil, right? I have to give a reason for why is he behaving like this, why is there, because when you just make someone evil from the very beginning, I think people are not interested in that. I think it's very important to give the character a backstory. So in this case, Taranath's backstory was, and he starts out as a good character in the book, and everyone is very fond of him. He's very strong and he's very fit, and he saves the elephant from the crocodiles. But there is something very serious that happens in his life, that his father is sent to imprison by the tiger king of the jungle, right? Now, because this episode has happened in his life, there is a change that he experiences, because by nature he's also a very angry character, right? And once you are successful in that evil that you have planned, you start thinking that the world is at my feet and I can do anything that I want. Now you will ask me, but I haven't seen or heard anything like this. Well, you may be right, but if you look at, for example, the Ramayana. So in the Ramayana, I don't know if you're familiar with it. When Ravan just did not become Ravan by itself, right? Before he became Ravan, he was someone who was, considered a great warrior, etc. It's as his power increased, as he started defeating the gods, his arrogance also increased, right? And as his arrogance increased, he thought that he can do whatever he wants. And he went and abducted Sita Mata, and he refused to give her back to Lord Ram. And actually Ravan is an emblem for arrogance, right? In that same way, those are the same things that are happening to Taranath. That because something happens to him, he says, I will get revenge, and he plans his tricks, and he ousts the tiger family, and he imprisons Veera's son. But eventually he starts thinking that I can do whatever I want to do, and I will get away with it. So it's very important that we understand what the backstory is, what is the motivation for a character, why is he behaving like this, because it creates a layer. And when you give a layer to a character, maybe you might feel also for the character, right? So that is what I did. I don't know if it was the right thing to do or wrong thing to do, but yeah, well, in this story, this is what happens.
Thank you, Akshay sir, for telling me about this question. I couldn't understand the answer and I didn't know exactly what the answer could be, but thank you for telling me the answer.
Thank you, Adya. Thank you for reading the book.
And
All right, thank you. And that was a lovely question for those who probably got cut or gotten late. So, Akshay spoke about the layers of characters, and I thought that was beautifully brought out. No one is evil, no one is good. It's the circumstances that make us all take these choices that, in the eyes of the world, could look good or bad. And I think that's a great lesson for all of us to take forward and say we always have an opportunity to make the right decision, what feels best for us. Perhaps the world may not always accept that. But if you are clear in your conscience, then perhaps that's the right thing to do. And that's what a lot of our scriptures says, a very deep, spiritual meaning to that as well. Thank you for that, Akshay. I'll just go on to Amira Gupta, who's 10 and she's from Delhi. She loves reading, she loves cooking and dancing. Her favorite author is Katrina Keller, and she loves to whip up desserts for her dad. How sweet. Welcome, Amira.
Akshay sir, first of all, I would like to congratulate you because you have written such an awesome book. So, a huge congratulations.
Thank you so much, Amira.
You're welcome, sir. I feel that your book is just amazing. Personally, the best part for me is your style of writing. It is so captivating that actually it is so realistic that I could imagine the pages so well that I was feeling that it was a movie instead of a book.
Thank you so much. Well, I wrote it. One thing I was very clear about from the very beginning is that I was writing something which I wanted the children to see in for themselves. So, if you notice, every chapter has 4 or 5 sections, and each section has its own setting, its own landscape. I would be lying if I said that I didn't write the
So
story keeping in mind that it could be, it could make for a good audiovisual slash movie adaptation.
not related to the book, it's related to you. Did you
Okay.
always have a knack for writing, or did like some incident made you start writing?
Well, actually, there was no one incident. I don't even think that in school I was particularly fascinated by writing. School, college. In fact, I was doing my education I studied economics in college, and then I went on to do an MBA, and then I worked in the corporate world for a few years. And somewhere along the line, when I was working, we used to have this blogging group. Blogging was a big thing when we had just, finished B school, business school, after college. And so we had a group of friends from B school who used to, kind of pen down our thoughts on various sports, because we were like very die-hard sports enthusiasts. And then I used to give my opinions and all that, and one or two of my friends encouraged me that you write so well, you should think of doing this more seriously and all that. So I started doing that, and I started writing for my other interest was films, as Archana said in my introduction. So I started writing for film websites, and I was doing some writing for this one particular film website. And so from there, gradually I got more serious about writing and all that, and that's how I discovered the subject of my first book, and I went down that path. But to answer your question, in school and college, I certainly never imagined that I would be the author of 3 books now. I'm hoping that I can do 2 more. I think 5 is a good number. and then I can retire to the jungles of India and just spend my time doing wildlife photography. Um, but yeah, it is what it is. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, sir, for replying to my question. It also teaches us that it's never too late to start.
Oh yeah, Amira, like I think I mentioned to was it Vachi or Sanvi that for example, this wildlife photography thing of mine, I started only in mid 2017, by which time I was already quite old. I was already 38 by that time, right? Or just a few months shy of 38. Before that, I had not, I mean, I had done a little bit of wildlife photography, but not the way that I've been doing it in the last 5 years. So, and I still don't know, I find it very difficult to reconcile myself to what exactly is my profession. I really find it very difficult, and sometimes I struggle to tell people what do I do exactly, because the moment somebody says, oh, he writes on Hindi cinema or he writes on Hindi films and he's done 2 books on Hindi films, I find that very limiting. It's like somebody's caged me. Somebody has given me detention and told me, go stand in that corner, and you're not supposed to leave the left corner of the room, right? That is going to be your home for the rest of your life. And I'm like, why should I be stuck in that corner all my life? Let me go and explore the other corner. And so I go and explore the other corner, and that's how I became an NBA commentator. And when I became an NBA commentator, people said, "Oh, he does only NBA commentary, and while he's good at it, that's all he does." And I said, "No, but that's not all that I do. I also want to do wildlife photography. So I'm doing wildlife photography right now, amongst the other things that I do. But I don't know if this is the end. There might be something else that I get fascinated with in a few years from now."
Wow, sir, that's an amazing thing. It's so inspiring.
Thank you. I call myself a professional scatterbrain, which is not the best of things, but it works for me. So it takes all kinds of people to make the world work. There are people who just do one thing and they're incredibly good at that, doing that one thing, which is the most important thing in their lives. And it also might end up helping humanity. Doctors, for example, or somebody who is a farmer. His expertise may be in farming, and that's the only thing that he knows. For me, this is what works. I cannot, the moment I get constrained by one thing, it starts grating on me, or I start getting irritated by it, and therefore I have to do many things.
Okay, sir. So one more thing that I would like to ask, that
Please
like
ask.
in this book it was like a jungle and all the animal names were Indian, so we can kind of think that it was an Indian setup. Are all of your books on Indian setups, or is it like mixed?
No, so Amira, this is my first book in this space, in as a children's book. My other 2 books are on Hindi film personalities. They are non-fiction. This was a work of fiction. My next
Oh,
book,
okay.
my next book also, whatever it is, whether I go back to doing a book on Hindi films or whether I go and do a book for children, will again be set in India only. I'm very clear about that, because again, when I grew up, we learned Z for zebra and G for giraffe and G for gorilla, and all those 3 creatures are not found in India, right? But there are other animals which are found in India which are not found anywhere else. For example, the lion-tailed macaque. For example, the wild ass from the Little Run of Kutch. Who is going to tell our children, our people, about what is there within our own country? I am not trying to say for a minute that we should not go out and explore. It's always good to explore. It's always good to travel and keep an open mind towards all other cultures and all other destinations. But let's also recognize what we have in our own backyard, what is there in our own home, right? There's no point in saying that, yeah, I need a new cycle. I really want to cycle and I enjoy cycling, and let me go and buy a cycle. And then suddenly I realized after I buy that new cycle that I live in such a big house that there was a cycle lying in the balcony of my house, right? So why did I go and spend money on buying a new cycle, right? First, appreciate what you have before you start exploring and appreciating what is there in other places, in other countries, in different regions. So that was the idea of this book.
Oh, thank you for answering it, sir. Sir, I'm sorry, but just another question popped into my mind.
Yeah.
When you said that this was your first children's book, were you
Yeah.
struggling on it, or was it like very fluent, like you were like just writing?
Well, to be honest with you, Amira, that there is a good part and there is a bad part to my answer. The good part is that, to be very honest with you, I did not struggle with plot. I just did not struggle with plot. It came to me. I mean, this is not to say that everything was like a clear map in front of me and I knew which way the story is going. But I didn't have that, oh, now I'm not able to figure out what should I do and all. There were moments where I thought, like, for example, what should be the climax of the story? Should Sultana attack all the other Taranath and all his allies, all the creatures of Mahovann who are on his side, hyenas and the gods and everyone else who is on his side with all the forces that she has, or should she make it a one-on-one battle, right? And now, maybe I'm going into a little bit more of detail, but again, this dilemma that she has, it comes from the Mahabharata, where that moment is there before the great battle of Kurukshetra begins, the final battle, the Mahabharata. When Arjun, who is one of the Pandavas, he has this dilemma that, if I fight this battle, all my near and dear ones, my grandfather, my guru, my cousin brothers, their families, everyone will die. There will be damage even on my side, right? So should I even be fighting this battle? So she is faced with the same dilemma in the story, right? But now I don't know whether you or any of you were able to see that this is actually an influence from the Mahabharata, right? But now that's where the author brings in his own unique voice. So I was grappling with how do I resolve this? I could have very easily gone ahead and said that, this was an all-out war between the animals on both sides, but that would be like a Mahabharata-like ending, right? And I didn't want that. I had to give it my own unique twist, right? So what she does is that she challenges Taranath. If you've read the book, she challenges Taranath for a one-on-one battle. And I thought that makes sense because first of all, Taranath thinks of himself to be the mightiest warrior, right? It's like Ravan. When Ravan was at the peak of his evil empire, if you challenged him for a one-on-one battle, he thought, I'm the lord of the three worlds, right? मैं तो तीनों लोकों का स्वामी हूँ. As you know, so I don't know how comfortable you all are with Hindi, but I am the king, undisputed king of the three worlds, right? So who dare to challenge me? And if you challenge me, I will accept your challenge, because his ego has become so big, right? So that is what she does. That she challenges. She is actually. It's not that she's challenging Taranath to a physical fight. She's challenging his ego. And it is his ego which leads to his downfall because he underestimates her. And if I could ask all the children, all of you all have read the book, correct?
Yes, sir.
Vachi, Sanvi, all of you all have read the book, right? You will ask me that how is it possible that she was able to beat him one-on-one? She was a tigress and he was a male bear, and the physical strength may not have been equal. Now again, there was a certain influence in the writing of that plot. In the 1970s there was a very famous boxing match, okay, and you might find it funny, but that was the influence for that moment in the story. That there was this very famous boxing match between Muhammad Ali and George Foreman. George Foreman was the reigning boxing champ of the world, and Muhammad Ali was an old man. He was about 35, 36, and he was just coming out of retirement and having gone to jail for refusing to participate in the Vietnam War and all that. And this particular fight, if I remember correctly, it took place in 1976, and it is considered the greatest boxing fight in the world. And what happened in that boxing fight is that the younger George Foreman, who was the heavyweight champion of the world, everyone thought that he is going to beat Muhammad Ali very easily. So when the boxing match started over 12 rounds, in the first 5-6 rounds, he just kept charging at Muhammad Ali and just kept trying to knock him down. And the only thing that Muhammad Ali did was that he ducked. Every time George Foreman came to attack him, he just ducked and he avoided George Foreman. He kept dancing around the ring, avoiding any physical contact with George Foreman, right? And every time George Foreman managed to land a punch, it would only Muhammad Ali would close his stance and absorb. He would absorb the punches, and he would tell George Foreman in his ear that, this is not good enough. You have to hit me harder. Nothing is happening to me. And he kept conserving his energy. And then what happened is, after the 7th or 8th round, George Foreman started tiring, because 8 rounds had gone by and he had not done any damage to Muhammad Ali. And that's when Muhammad Ali unleashed his proper self on George Foreman and he beat Muhammad Ali. It's considered by most accounts the greatest boxing fight ever. So that is, a combination of how to give my own unique voice to the story and incorporating a sporting influence that ultimately becomes the resolution for my book. So that is just something. I don't know if it was of any interest to you all, but I thought I'll share that with you.
That was fascinating, Akshay.
It was very
Thank you.
interesting.
Thank you, Amera, and thank you, Akshay. I have a question now. This is for all of our youngsters who've read the book. All of you in the chat who've read can also answer. I'm going to tell you a line from the book, and you need to type it in chat, or if one of our speakers know it, you can tell us the answer. I'm going to tell you a line from the book, and you have to say who says it. Okay? So let's have a quick test to see how many of you remember this. All right, here's the line. It goes, Bhairav, I pronounce you guilty for the killing of the wolves and Veera. You will serve out the rest of your life in the Mahovann swamp as a prisoner of the forest. Who says it?
Veera.
So Akshay, that's the test that they've all passed, and we know that they've all read the book.
Well done.
All right, thank you, and wonderful insights. I'll just give it up to Nidhi, who will give us a nice summary for the event as well, and then of course over to you, Akshay. First, Nidhi.
Yes, thank you so much, everybody. I think every book seems so much more meaningful after we've heard from the author what was in their mind when they wrote it. So while to me it was a story for most part, but having heard Akshay's passion for trying to spread awareness about the whole biodiversity that India has, I think it means just so much more. There seems to be more to the book than a plot and a summary. There seems to be a mission. And I know that we have also at Bookosmia been doing a lot of these engagements with some of our partners like Kadu, who develop games only to promote Indian biodiversity, and we had our Bookosmians write poems and facts about some of these animals. So it just gels so well with what young kids should be and wanting to know. So that was fantastic, Akshay. I do hope you find a lot more corners in that room, Akshay. Looking forward to many more things that you can do. I'm personally very interested. I was to have you over for my love of Sahir Ludhianvi, so I'll catch up with you separately on that sometime.
Sure.
But this was really nice, and I can see that if we let the kids be, they'll keep picking your brains more and more about it. So, but I am very conscious you also need to be somewhere. Thank you, everybody. I encourage everyone on the podcast who listens to us later. When you read the book, do send in a review. What we do is we publish all of children's review on the book together as an ebook. So make sure you share what you like the best. What else you can go Akshay to write about next time. Right. All right. Thank you so much. That's it from me, Archana.
Thank you, Nidhi. And from all of us here at Bookosmia, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you from Sanvi, Vachi, Adya, Amira, and of course, Akshay. We'd like you to close out for today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Akshay?
Thanks so much, Archana and Nidhi and Bookosmia, for giving me this platform. And it was a real pleasure to interact with Vachi, Sanvi, Amira, and Adya. Really, the observations, the insights, their questions. I'm so glad they've enjoyed the book. it has made them think and understand where I was coming from or what was the story that I was trying to tell. And besides that, like I tell children that you must appreciate what we have, because we don't know this path that we are going down, where there is climate change and species are going extinct. I hope the coming generations will do a better job in fighting for these animals, these wonderful beautiful animals who play such a vital part in preserving ecosystems, which is such an important part of planet Earth. And you can only do that if you first get to know what it is that you want to save, right? It's not always about the tiger. There are much smaller species which play an equally important role, whether it is the Indian crested porcupine or whether it is the hollock gibbon, which is found in the jungles of northeast India. All of them have their own unique contribution to our planet Earth. So go out there, learn more about these species, learn their specific scientific names, their specific names. Do not just refer to them as monkeys, because nobody likes being referred to as an East Indian or a West Indian or a South Indian or a North Indian. Everybody wants to be known for who they are, where they come from. And I think even animals deserve that. Know your bonnet macaque from your rhesus macaque, your eastern hollock gibbon from your western hollock gibbon. It may sound very challenging, but children, if you put in that effort, you really can make a difference to this planet. And we need it on a war footing, because we have to undo the wrongs of the past. So having said that, I don't want to sound all somber and sad. It is a Sunday evening. I hope you all will enjoy the rest of your evening before you all head into online or physical school tomorrow. And I really, really, really enjoyed interacting with each one of you. Thank you so much once again, Archana and Nidhi and Bookosmia. And I look forward to having many, many more interactions with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Akshay, and a big thank you to our partners as well, Westland Red Panda, and of course, Backstage, where all of this action happens. Do continue to join all our podcasts. They're all by kids, for kids. We have our wonderful Trending with Teens, which is India's first live podcast. Everything done by teens. Till the next podcast, thank you so much, Akshay, for joining us, and thank you to all our young readers and listeners out there. Have a safe evening. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Everyone, bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.